Welcome to a busted play, an illegal use of hands to the face short.
Tom Brady has recently had a little interview with, I guess, like the Buccaneers social media team, where he talked about having just, issues with the modern game and, how he used to need to worry about players like Ray Lewis, his specific example was. And if he was like across the middle, you just wouldn't throw your receivers like in that window ever. Like you just wouldn't throw to your receivers when they were in that window. Um, with that being said, do you think the modern game is almost like Brady put it, uh, punishing the defense for the offense's mistakes?
Well, I completely agree with what Tom Brady said, but Tom Brady also has to realize that the game has been modernized this way basically because of him. A lot of these changes have come about because of Tom Brady. And I'm not going to fault Tom Brady for calling, like, wanting flags whenever he's tapped on the helmet now, because that's how the game's designed. But the game has gotten so offensive friendly and QB friendly with the rise and superiority of Tom Brady. And I'm pretty sure if you came up with a chart of like rules increased to benefit the offense and Tom Brady's time in the league, it would just correspond perfectly. Uh, but I agree with him what he's speaking up on. I just think it's very hypocritical of him to do that because I think all these changes happen in some part because of him.
Yeah, I don't know. I see passes now, and it's like, wow, it feels like there's a lot more plays that should end up as hospital balls than when we were like little kids. Because it just feels like those passes that never used to get thrown, people are willing to throw now. So I kind of agree with him. It definitely comes back to a fun point we talked about in the off season. I think one of our most fun conversations of rule changes. And with those rule changes, I just think that it's like we should be getting back to more rule changes that help the defense because it feels like everything is pushing towards the offense. And now I feel like you can throw those balls without as much of a risk, like throwing across the middle at a dangerous linebacker or hard hitting safety or what have you. And but I mean, there'll always be rules to change, and that's why rules change every year. I would just like it if they actually gave some more stuff back to the defense, honestly,
Mm-hmm.
or at least could try to find some rule changes that would help the defense.
Yeah, and another thing that I've noticed too, just with all these offensive changes, you just see like kids now. Like if you were to talk to like a 11, 12, 13-year old that's really into football and watches the NFL, I highly doubt that any of their favorite players are defenders. And when we were like little kids, even
Oh
when
my
these rule
gosh, yeah.
changes were going on, like we would still have favorite players that played on defense. And now it just doesn't happen because none of these big play, like big hit opportunities come to them, or if they do happen, they're punished for it. And even sometimes players have these big hits and then they're like scrutinized for it, and sometimes even pushed out of like the team that they're on because it's like, yeah, we can't have that happen. I mean, one guy for the Panthers had, well, that's practice, but it's different. He had a hit in practice, and he's just out of the league now. Uh, with how it is just protecting every single offensive player because the league knows that that's their money makers now.
Yeah, and it's weird seeing it go that way. I have to say though, at least there's something that's slightly worse in terms of watching some college football today, and seeing a player that's just like it seems like you've got these targeting rules in college football, and it's like not only can you get called for targeting, but you can have like nobody think it's targeting when the play actually goes through, and then have like a 5 minute review where you review if it's targeting, and nobody thought it was live. But then
Mm-hmm.
after the fact, they determine that it was targeting, and this guy's got to get kicked out of the game. I don't know. I don't think that if a guy's like, I know this is a slightly different discussion, but man, it really bothered me today. Just talking in terms of defensive rules versus offensive rules and stuff. This guy was playing an extremely fair game. He wasn't doing anything egregious at all. I mean, he was like one of the stars of the game because he was playing so well for Penn State specifically, number 13 on defense. And it was just like it was just like, now he's going to get kicked out after a review that nobody saw coming while it was live. And I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it was just a situation where it was like, man, I don't think he needs to get pulled from the game, because I feel like actually ejecting people from the game should be for some sort of like evil intent, or like something that's just like way outside the rule books. Like, come on, man, there's no way you should have done that. Like, if you punch a guy in the face or something after a play's over, or just, like, I don't know. But it just did not feel right. And I mean, at least the NFL's not at that point.
Yeah, if the NFL does get to that point, geez. I mean, the league's never going to die. At least it feels that way. And they're not going to lose viewership. But I'll have a harder time watching games if it's like, oh, yeah, this guy's ejected for the rest of this game and then a half of the next because he had a hard hit. And that winter review after the play because someone up in the skybox saw that. And if that's going to be how the NFL implements the skybox too. Just immediate replay on all these plays is going to be, oh, we're also adding targeting into the playbook or into the rule book too.
Well, I feel like we actually did see like the beginnings of the skybox this year, even though they're not calling it. Our specific example in Detroit in the preseason, we had a play that was called a live pick six. It obviously was a ball that hit the ground, and basically immediately got changed. Like, in the past, they would have had to go to replay for it. In this case, it seemed like what the NFL did, even though it was called a touchdown live on the field, the guy just buzzed down and said, "Hey, man, that hit the ground, and there's no reason that we need to go look at this for 20 minutes. Just shut it down and say it was incomplete." And it saved a ton of time. So I actually really like that. And if they kind of use it in that manner, I could see why you never need to do a skybox thing, because then that also, like, if that guy can just buzz down and be like, hey, you missed this terribly, like within the first 10 seconds of the play being over, and say, we can have that Tommy Lee Lewis NFC Championship game situation fixed, because he can just say, yeah, throw a flag now. Just drop a flag. Trust me. That would be a lot better for the league as a whole, I would say.
Yeah. But what we have to say as Bills fans is Tom Brady was right for once.
Oh, really? Oh, I feel like I would say that he's right more often than not. I tend to agree with him.
Oh. Baby steps. I'll retroactively admit that he's been right on other stuff once we get there, but baby steps.
Yeah, he needs to be out of the league first. He also seems like he knows, as I told you earlier, he knows that A.J. Brown is the best receiver in the league.
Oh, yeah. He's going over there and just chopping it up with him for, like, extensive time. I bet he didn't even talk to Julio that long. He knows who the best receiver on that team is.
He's probably trying to get him to Tampa or wherever he's going to play next. Honestly, he's like, yeah, just come on through. I see your talent. Like, he's like, I know that everybody's going to recognize you as the best receiver in the league in a few years. Even though you are currently, they'll realize it then. Yeah. So that's fun, too. Anything else?
Nah, I think we can cut this here.